Welcome to Watching the Throne.
A lyrical analysis of Kanye West.
My name is Chris Lambert.
And my name is Travis Bean, and gosh, I feel weird. I feel like I've gone back in time or something.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. Like, I just heard a door shut,
Yeah.
and I went upstairs, and it was me in the bathroom. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And me was like, you're okay.
That's so funny. I just experienced the exact same thing. And my future self was like, don't worry, you'll understand everything on day 13.
So strange.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, let's just focus on day 12 for now, though. We are back from LA. We are focused on Kanye. We're all ramped up from our trip, and we're ready to talk some more yay.
Yeah, the trip was good. Exhausting. Gallivanting
Ooh.
around LA for 4 days.
Man, we were busy.
Yeah, y'all need roads that are less trafficked.
And less hilly.
So many hills.
And hills that have more Kanye on them.
Wait, what?
Have more Kanye. Like, I just want to see Kanye every once in a while.
Yeah, you know, Kanye on this hill walking a dog, Kanye in that hill hula hooping, Kanye on the other hill jogging.
Even if it's just like a billboard or a giant statue of him.
Oh yeah, that works too.
But yeah, preferably him in the flesh would be great.
Could you imagine if we commissioned a series of Kanye sculptures and then just dropped them off on different streets in Los Angeles?
You say that like it would be crazy if it didn't happen.
One day we'll do a Kickstarter for $250,000.
Wasn't one of our early Patreon goals that we would buy a billboard near his house?
Yeah, we thought it'd be funny to get a billboard in Calabasas and just put messages to Kanye from the fans and be like, "Good morning, Kanye."
God, we'd have to raise like $100,000 probably.
Yeah. Like, really like the new album. Good luck on Jesus is King.
By the way, if you ever want to come on the show, it would only take like 2, 3, 4 hours of your time and just talk shop.
Yeah. 2 to 3, 4 hours of your time per 2, 3 to 4
And that
days.
that doesn't include setup or like just, recreational activities we'll be doing together.
Perfect.
Anyway, day 12. Let's see what today's treat is. And this is cute. It's a little tiny cup of coffee.
A tiny cup of Joe?
Oh, it's pumpkin spice flavored.
Oh.
Yummy. And
Sounds like a treat.
Oh, it's Starbucks. They're sponsoring the show today.
It just makes me want to rant about the Starbucks we were at.
Chris, come on. You did that online already.
I did. I wrote a 1-star review.
Not based on their product or their food or their coffee, just purely one very loud air conditioner or whatever the fuck that was.
Every time the door opened, it would click clack on. It sounded like 30 people arming a shotgun.
1 star.
1 star. Your Starbucks. You can either find a better way to cool your building or get a new thing. It was weird.
Well, Starbucks as sponsors of the show, maybe you can respond to Chris's review personally.
Yeah, I prefer to be called Karen right now. Thank you.
Okay.
Because I've gone full Karen.
Okay. That's good. That's a good way to, not get caught. Anyway, today's episode, we're going to keep it a little simpler in this one because I think we're getting a little long in the tooth lately. So Chris and I are each going to pick our favorite 3-song stretch from a Kanye West album and just talk about it.
Yeah, the idea came from Calvin May 17 on Twitter, so thank you, Calvin, for the concept.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him and his brother, Calvin June.
You like Calvin June? I always preferred Calvin April.
I kind of see them as a duo or as a trio.
Don't even know your numbers.
Calvin April, I mean, he's great, but he's a little too eccentric for my taste.
Okay. You just got to be all hoity-toity.
Yeah, you know, I like postmodern stuff, but at some point, you know, I just appreciate somebody who's able to just be the month they are in a progressive yet classic way.
Well, now who's the Karen?
What are we talking about? Okay, three songs. Chris, you want to go first?
Yeah, so my 3-song stretch is from an album Kanye put out in the year of our Lord.
Oh,
It feels
the
weird
year of our
saying
Lord?
that. Yeah, I've never said that before. 2016.
Okay.
An
I'm getting a
album
pretty good idea of what this might be.
called The Life of Pablo.
Yeah. I've heard of that one.
Yes, it's a good one. If you are listening to the show and you haven't listened to The Life of Pablo, I have so many questions. But it was an album inspired in part by the story of Paul the Apostle, as Kanye tweeted out in the hours before the album would come out. And Paul's story, as I have told so many times in the show, and you may be able to recite it along with me at this point, is that popularly it's said that he was a sinner named Saul, who was just a dick to people, especially to Christians, who he would persecute like a bully. Not just like a bully. He was a bully. Until one day, on the road to Damascus, God appeared and was like, Saul. Saul's like, oh my God, it's so bright. Shit, I have fucked up, haven't I? God was like, a little bit. Boom, now you're blind. So Saul is blind, and God's like, you should think about some of the shit that you've done. And Saul went on into Damascus, and some very nice people who were followers of Christ took care of Saul for a few days, as Saul, in all the dark blindness that surrounded him, really thought back on his life and what had happened. I am not making this fast or speedy or short.
Yeah, but you know, it's getting the story detail analysis it should.
Right. It's just a necessary part of the understanding. The understanding. So in this time, he's just like, maybe I've done things wrong. Maybe I need to do better. You know what? I'll give it a try. I will dedicate my life to God. So he got baptized and converted and became Paul, as the story goes. Some argue whether he's ever Saul or just Paul the whole time. The thing is, he was a new man, and he was a prophet going around and telling people all the great things God did, and he would go on to be so influential that when he died, they named him a saint. So Kanye, The Life of Pablo, Pablo being the Spanish form of Paul, is a similar character going on a similar journey, except he's more torn between which lifestyle he needs to live, which is right there on the album cover, right? Is it a life of indulgence and sin, the life of Saul? Or is it the life of faith and family and dedication, the life of Paul, which we see on the album cover with the big booty model and the family at the wedding? So the first part of the album all builds up this drama between the two lifestyles. So you get the beautiful indulgent sound on Father Stretch My Hands, countered by the darker, more realistic, vulnerable sound on part 2. The same thing happens with Famous and Feedback. And one, like the beautiful superficial thing, sounds nice and lovely, but doesn't get at the truth. And the uglier sounding thing is actually the truth and the real emotions. And you see that in highlights too. It's just this very superficial look at his family and family-in-law, which is countered then by him wanting to bang these models at Equinox, or bang the girls at Equinox. At the end of the song, you're just like, how did you just talk about your family and now you're wanting bad bitches up at Equinox? So there's all this tension between being driven by sinful thoughts and celebrity versus dedicating yourself to family, which is what we had seen Kanye kind of go through on other albums, which I'm sure Travis will talk a bit more about. He had kind of been building to this point where he needed to let go of celebrity and really embrace family. And so as the first part of the album really explores this dichotomy and the tension between which one is he going to pick, we finally reach a stretch where he has made his choice. And the new Kanye, in quotes, that's been such a dick, disappears. And the old Kanye, who had been like loving and thoughtful, emerges again. And you get FML leading that charge after Waves kind of establishes the changeover from one personality to the other. And on FML, it's this very it's a sudden awareness of what he has to lose and what he could have lost. And that stretch from FML into Real Friends into Wolves is my favorite 3-song stretch on any Kanye album, just because we see him have that light bulb turn on, then go into a surveillance of his life now that he can really see it for what it has become, into then finally dedicating himself to his family fully and understanding just what is there and what's necessary and why it's so important. And it's such a contrast, Wolves is, to what we had heard on Highlights. Like Highlights, he's just like, yeah, we have money, everything's great, and it's this like happy bopping song. But then you get to Wolves and it's like, yeah, I was in a broken place and so was Kim. Like shit was bad for both of us, and we didn't think anybody could ever love us. And yet we found each other and we loved each other despite knowing everything that we knew, like all the flaws of one another. Like, that's amazing. That's powerful. That's not just the highlights, right? That's the depth and the core and the root where love blooms from. And you bring in more and more religious elements as we get to Wolves, and you have the kids then representing kind of Jesus figures. Like Kanye positions him and Kim as Jesus and Mary, like meeting in the club. And Jesus and Mary are the parents of Christ, and Christ in the Bible is thought of as the
Joseph
Redeemer.
and Mary.
Or yeah, what was I saying?
Jesus and Mary. Some incest.
Yeah. Nope. Joseph and Mary, J names. Joseph and Mary have Jesus, and if Jesus was the one that redeemed everybody of their sins, right, through his sacrifice. Mm-hmm. I've learned so much about the Bible in the last 2 years.
Like Jesus and Mary weren't together?
Yeah, right.
I was always confused about that.
Still finding my way. With the details,
minor
who
details
Joseph
like that.
is, who Jesus is.
Whether it is or isn't incest, just those kinds of questions. But to then have North and Saint positioned as Jesus being born, it positions them as redemption. That despite whatever sins that Kanye and Kim had committed, despite how broken they had been, when they had kids together, they've been redeemed. They've been transformed. And it's cool because at the start of FML, he says, I've been waiting for a minute for my lady, so I can't jeopardize that for one of these hoes. And he says, I've been living without limits, which you can't keep doing. Mm-hmm. Like, if you do that, like, something's going to tip. You're going to lose something. And just this idea, I've been waiting for a minute for my lady, and having that dichotomy between FML being for my lady and fuck my life gets at which one, right? Like, he can either fuck his life up forever or do what he has to do for his lady. And by picking his lady on FML and putting her and his family over the real friends, in quotes, that take advantage of him and the wasteland that his life had kind of become, he finds the redemption at the end of Wolves that will allow him to be better, be happier, and not have this baggage that he's been carrying that had brought his life to the desolate point we see on Real Friends, which is there's a couple references to family business on Real Friends, and it's cool just having that contrast because family business was so collective and so happy, and
such a, it seemed like a moment that would last forever. But then you see 15 years on or 12 years on at that point that no, fame had ruined some of this. And what we thought was forever can be compromised by money, materialism, ego.
Yeah, I think it really just highlights Kanye's dedication to an album-long narrative. And, it takes a lot of time to build to everything you just discussed. Like the first, 10 or so songs in the album have to all create this broken human being who has these cathartic moments at the end where he realizes what's really important in his life. And I mean, it's one thing to set all that up, but then to capture it in 3 songs there at the end that all sound completely different. Like they're all a little more low key and everything. They're not big blown up songs like Father Stretch My Hands or Highlights, but they all have different energies to them and are exploring completely different topics, yet are all getting at the same idea of becoming a better man to the people in your life and taking stock of everything and just kind of rebuilding. It's so impressive.
Yeah, that's such a good point to go from each song has a unique thing that it's looking at, but there's still a escalation from song to song. It's like the breakthrough that he has on Waves is what allows him to have the perspective that he has on FML. And the breakthrough in perspective he has on FML is what allows him to have the perspective on Real Friends. Same thing with Wolves. But yet you can still listen to them as individual songs and capture that in the moment feeling of just what that song is about. And it kind of stands on its own too.
Yeah. Kanye's just amazing at closing albums out. Like it makes me think of the end of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and how, Hell of a Life, Blame Game, Lost in the World are kind of the same situation where it's all been this build to like these broken relationships he's had with women. Like how he's, become an overblown celebrity in real life and how that then at the end applies to the people in his life. And that ultimately that's a metaphor for himself and how it applies to his relationship with himself. It's, I don't know. You just can't, it's hard to put into words like how difficult that's already difficult to do from a storytelling standpoint in any medium, but especially on an album. For each song to be a link in that chain, that's so crazy.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So that's why it's my favorite.
Yeah. And my favorite is actually a 3-song stretch in the middle of an album that is part of that build towards what, Chris pretty much covered, like the end where you kind of start anew or like points towards a new direction. My 3 favorite songs are kind of the middle part of the album that are setting all that up. And that would be the stretch of songs on Yeezus, tracks 5, 6, and 7, Hold My Liquor, I'm In It, and Blood on the Leaves. And this is interesting because I wouldn't even say I shouldn't even be saying this out loud because I know we're going to get fucking pummeled for it. Blood on the Leaves isn't even like one of my absolute favorite Kanye songs. Like I don't even know if it's my top 5 for Yeezus.
I will pummel you.
But I can't deny its place on the album and how important and crucial it is to the album's narrative and Kanye's career. Because, I mean, I love Yeezus in general because it is the opposite of what everyone expected him to do. He calls My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy a backhanded apology. Like it was the album he knew he needed to make up for the public. And in that way, he's kind of saying like, it's not the album I would have made if this hadn't happened to me. Like this album, it's an expression of me and like my place in society, but it's not, it's an album he made for people instead of for himself. And to me, Yeezus is an album he made for himself because it really, just the way it moves and like the contained narrative it is and how it pits him as this really polarizing, ugly figure who's figuring everything out. It's so weird how it kind of like is its own thing that isn't what we expect from Kanye. And those 3 songs in the middle to me are probably the most representative of Kanye and gets more at like the kind of music he wants to make. because those three songs are about women in his life, and they're all, of course, fiction. These aren't actual women he's dealt with. They're all metaphors for himself and his relationship with himself and with fame and celebrity and the public and everything. And with music, I feel like everything being expressed in those three songs is crucial to understanding Kanye in this moment of time and how he's in transition from the fallout with the public to his new life with Kim. Like, all of that is, that entire transition to me is being described in those three songs. And, the first three songs in the album really describe somebody who's kind of a maniac and 500 and out of control. But at the same time wants to do a lot with his life. Like, he wants to start a revolution and he wants to guide people towards a better path of changing society and not being controlled by corporations and vanquishing racism. And he has all these next level ambitions that are ultimately kind of unachievable. Like, even someone in Kanye's position can't do all this crazy shit by himself, which leads into the end of New Slaves. After an entire song of ranting and raving about how unfair society is, he just breaks down, gets high, and has this dream about this woman. There's a Hungarian poem that happens, or a Hungarian song, and it translates to, "One day the sun, too tired to shine, slept in the deep, green somber lake, and in the darkness the world did ail until she came for all our sake." And it sets up this idea that, again, at the end of Lost in the World, Kanye's been aching for somebody to guide him, to make him a better person, to show him how to survive in this fucking treacherous landscape of celebrity and fame and pop culture at his level. And it's something he's been looking for ever since his mom died. So these three songs are him trying to find that connection of somebody. And his inability to do it in each and every song reveals a more and more broken man, which, again, is an amazing build-up to Bound 2, where he finds his Kim and where, he's getting a start to something hopefully better. But these three songs, in effect, kind of look at three different relationships. So three different romances, but in turn, three different emotions he's going through with himself and his place in society. Hold My Liquor is this romance from his past that he's coming back to and hoping to fix things. And it makes you think of him just reflecting on being old Kanye and what he used to represent, and the fulfillment and catharsis he used to get from music and what he gets now, and how it's removed and empty. And now he wakes up with a hangover and crashed the woman's car in the driveway, and his life's just sad and pathetic. And then we get I'm In It, where he's trying to, it's like Hell of a Life Part 2, where he's trying to connect with this woman who he has a sexual connection with, and that he connects with because they're both not exactly outcasts of society, but not, like the ideal people you look up to in society. They're both kind of like removed from it and find a connection with each other because of that. And because of that, you really see him exaggerating his ego and really embracing his ego and being full on Kanye West and kind of forgetting all the lessons he might have been learning in Hold My Liquor. And then it all leads into Blood on the Leaves, which is like a landscape painting, like looking at gender politics across society and how men and women use each other, and how, and again, I think that translates to the public, what we expect from celebrities and what celebrities give you, and how it can be a draining, soul-sucking relationship that leaves people broken. Just the idea that he's kind of going through all those emotions with himself by exploring it through these three different women on these three different songs. I mean, that shit is just legendary.
Legendary is a pretty great word for it. Pretty great word for it. That was the thing that always jumped out to me about that stretch of songs, was the multifaceted look at relationships, as you were just saying. And the Yeezus character, when you first meet him, feels like such an unmitigated asshole because that's who he is. And when you find out on Blood on the Leaves that he had a point in time where he was hopeful and in love and just had that innocent view of things before the girl left him for the limelight, and he got broken and hurt for the first time, and you understand that his behavior hasn't been, he's been an asshole, but it's more he's been hurt and hasn't known how to process that pain and hasn't dealt with it. And that's why he's then had bad relationships in the aftermath, which is what we see on Hold My Liquor, that were just hollow and indulgent. And then another hollow, indulgent relationship on I'm In It, where he's just having gratuitous sex with a girl that has no meaning whatsoever. So he goes from trying to recapture meaning to having a relationship with no meaning, which you described so well as capturing what his relationship with music could have been. Like, should I go back and make College Dropout? Should I go and make like very hollow music that just everybody will enjoy, but is it really the deeper kind of thing that I want to make? It isn't art. Versus how do I get myself to a place where I feel good and that I'm doing this because I really want to do this and make the music that's for me and coming from a place that's healthy, rather than just destroyed by the situation I'm finding myself in.
Yeah.
And I always love that sense of nadir, because it really does feel like, in a way, Hold My Liquor, I'm In It, and Blood on the Leaves are even lower in some ways, I would think, than 808s and Heartbreak, in terms of just like how fallen Kanye is,
right,
and how desperate he is to try to get out of this place and unaware of how to do that and what to do. But that we come out of Blood on the Leaves with him telling himself to just breathe and breathe and breathe and breathe. There's something so cathartic in that moment. And that's really the tipping point on Yeezus. And I think in his discography, for him starting to move beyond and leave the past and be able to look ahead.
Yeah. And I think comparing it to 808s is actually, I think that highlights what separates these three songs, because 808s is in such a low place, such a desperate place, that it's somebody who's just kind of stuck in the mud, you know, and kind of just existing in that low place. Where Yeezus and these songs, three songs in particular, it's somebody who's in a really bad place and broken, yet wants to do so much and so desperately wants to break out of it, that you get this really full-bodied individual, and that leads to the crazy soundscapes of these songs and how they're all over the place. And then you have a line like, put my fists in are like a civil rights sign, which kind of display, you know, fits in with the gratuitous nature of the song and how he's kind of this next, like, over the top guy that's hard to relate to, with those ambitions that he has, that the political and social ambitions he had on New Slaves to lead a revolution has turned into something like this. It's him like almost like finally achieving it in a way through this woman. And again, it displays like the connection he wants to have with her, that he wants to take that failed revolution that he was trying to start and through imagery, channel it through her and find the kind of fulfillment he would have had from that revolution in this encounter. Like, that shit is so next level. Like, you have somebody who is just wanting to do so much in such a low place. It's the character he's able to build out of that idea is, I don't know, it's the most engaging he is, period, on an album.
It's such a sad moment, which we've talked about so many times, but just that all of his high ambitions have been reduced to like trying to find revolution through sex, like this meaningless sex. You're just like,
yeah, crazy.
Yeah. All
right, we did it again. Way too long.
So sorry.
You know what? I'm not sorry.
Never apologize. Can't tell me nothing.
We don't charge you guys to listen to this show. You're getting it for free.
If we did charge, it should be longer.
Yeah. If we were charging, it would be 4 times as long.
Just so you feel good about the money you spent.
Yeah. A time well spent.
I'd say.
Anyway,
until next time.
Until then.
Yeah.
Hey, I was going to say that.
Jinx.
All right. Well, don't say this at the same time as me, okay?
Okay.
All right. All right. Now everybody stay
Say wavy.
What? Wavy.
And
keep
it
loopy.
loopy.
Lupin.
God damn.
Remus Lupin.